like to welcome everybody to the Coaches in the Mouth. Hey, got a great episode today. You know, we got week 0 coming up. Me and Brent are going to talk a little bit of high school football, but got a special guest today. Chris Vaughn, scout for the Dallas Cowboys. Obviously, a lot of people, you know, on social media and are just watching preseason football. His son, Deuce Vaughn, playing running back for the Dallas Cowboys, having an outstanding preseason. Hopefully he makes it. Bray, what's some things you want to hear from Coach Vaughn?
Well, he's entering his football season just like I am as well. So I'm gonna sit back on this one and let y'all kind of get after it. I may ask him a little bit about what his job looks like now versus his recruiting, in college. I'm sure there's some big time differences there.
Mouth?
I want to first of all talk to Coach Vaughn about his being recruited by Kim Dameron, coach at Fort Smith Southside now, and former Murray State defensive coordinator. And I want to ask what it was like being recruited by a coach, playing for the coach, and then working with Coach Dameron at Ole Miss as both full-time assistant coaches, outside linebacker coach and secondary coach at Ole Miss. And I want to ask him, where did Deuce get his twitch? Because Coach Dameron and Coach Nutt reaffirmed to me that Chris Vaughn was a great player but had no twitch.
Oh, my gosh. Well, I've known him a long time, him, and I want to go through his career, talk to him a little bit, his experience at Arkansas, obviously at Ole Miss, and then, being in Memphis, and then people never ask this question about, working in Texas. How much pressure is there? Mm-hmm. Just the expectations and that part of it. And then I want to talk to him and this is something I've never, been in around football all my life, is talk to a scout how the war room looks on a NFL draft day. I think that'll be outstanding. Well, let's quit messing around here. Let's bring him on, our BSN guest, Chris Vaughn. Coach, glad to have you on.
Awesome to be here. Awesome to be speaking with you guys.
Well, let's get into it a little bit. And we're going to talk about you quite a bit, but let's talk about your son, Deuce. He, drafted by the Cowboys in the 6th round. You're a scout there. I want you to put your dad hat on just a little bit. Okay. Had a great game last night against the Seahawks. He's really done a great job as far as returning kicks and putting himself to marking himself to be a special teams player, but also the running back, and he is all over social media and listen to NFL Network and all play. Darren Sproles keeps coming, just remind. Put your dad hat on. Tell me a little bit about draft day. It's been documented, and just brag about your son a little bit.
Well, I will. It's hard, Jeff. It's hard to put on a dad cap. Because as a former coach, you don't want to be that dad. We've all dealt with that dad before, right? But I talked to him this morning, and I said, "Hey, you just think every time you play an NFL game, you're supposed to score, right?" And he kind of started giggling because it's been a pretty good start for him. The first 2 preseason games, he's scored in both of those competitions. So it started off really well for him. Here. Really proud of him. Of course, I've seen him kind of do this at every level, and it's funny because the coach in me is naturally, always wondering, like, okay, how's he going to do? When he went from high school to college, I remember being at that first game and going, I know he was a good high school player, but how will it translate, against these college guys? And next thing you know, it was like, and it's funny because it's kind of like that right now, So first pro game, I'm sitting there, I'm nervous. Jeff, I'm more nervous watching him than I ever was coaching, as I ever was playing, So I'm standing up I've got a seat, but I'm standing up in the stands, and So the first time he touched it, against. In the first preseason game, I went, okay, he's going to be okay. Like, I saw the quickness, I saw the burst, and then he had a pretty good day. But there's always, and then so of course the coach skeptic in me. Here's the second week of preseason. Well, how's he? Can he do it again? Was it a fluke last week? So and had first touch. As a runner, scored. Nice run, made a guy miss, and so it's been awesome to watch. Really, really proud of him. Trying not to put too much pressure on him. From the standpoint of trying to control my wife, right? Because my wife doesn't have a mom coach hat. It's full-time mom, right? So I have to remind her, like, hey, you can't be too loud in the stands because I work for these people, right? So I want to continue. No matter what happens, we need me to keep the job, right? So we can pay bills. But it's been fun.
Well, good deal. I mean, we got one more preseason game to go. We record this early and we'll drop it later. But boy, you just got to be proud. Let's get into you. I mean, you've had an interesting career. I've known you a long time, and just watching you grow as a coach and where you're at. Let's go back to your high school days in Tallahassee, Florida. I mean, and back then Florida State was real. The state of Florida football back when you were coming out. Florida State, Florida, Miami, they were all there. And you get recruited and go through this process. You get recruited by Houston Nutt, Kim Dameron to Murray State. And I believe you're the first guy they offered.
I was one of the first in their recruiting class because when they got there, they had taken over. So of course you got some kids committed and going, but I was one of the first classes that they started from scratch, their early evaluation and that part. Grew up a huge Florida State fan, living there in Tallahassee. And of course, now the Alabamas and the Ohio State. Well, Florida State was that, in the early and mid 90s when I was coming out, and always wanted to play there, but I tell people all the time, you end up exactly where you're supposed to be. And I think that's really big for young recruits to understand is where you want to be and where you need to be sometimes are different, and that's okay. You usually always end up in the right place. And that was Murray State for me. I had no idea where Murray, Kentucky was, coming from Tallahassee, Florida. But Coach Nutt, Charlie Wiles, who coaches at NC State now, was on Houston's staff there at Murray State, and he was a Florida guy, and he was a holdover from the coaching staff that Houston took over, and started recruiting me, and just fell in love with Coach Nutt and the coaching staff. And I love football. So as long as the people were good, I mean, it was a small town, one side of the stadium. I mean, it was a small college town. We didn't have a Chick-fil-A, didn't have a Burger King, but I had an opportunity to go play football with good people that I trusted, and just really have come to be, closest people in my life to this point, as far as in coaching and what they've done for me. And met my wife there. She's from Murray, Kentucky, of all places. So I've still got a connection to the town because we go back to visit, every summer or so to visit. So, but it was just a wonderful experience to be recruited by Coach Nutt. And of course, he left. It's so funny. He left after my redshirt sophomore year. And when you're 19 years old and your coach leaves, you have no concept of how the game works. He had to leave to eventually be the head coach at University of Arkansas and then Ole Miss. But when you're 19, you feel like he left me. Personally, you take it so personal. And usually people get jobs. He took over a Boise State program that was just okay. He kind of started that Boise State run to be where they are as a respected program, but he kind of got that thing started. So when he left, of course, you leave a job when you're a good coach to go take over a program that's not too good and build it up. So, of course, we looked at it like, wait a minute, we won the conference here 2 years back to back. We got guys coming back. Why would you leave us to go there? But again, as a 19-year-old, you don't understand how the process works. So fast forward, he takes the job at Boise. They win. Then he gets a chance to come back to Arkansas to be the head coach. Well, that was my senior year. And I always knew I wanted to be a coach and thought I wanted to be a high school coach, thought I wanted to go back to my high school and be an English teacher and coach high school ball, because everybody always told me college football is such a business and you can't have the same type of relationships with your coach as you had with your high school coaches. And that was always a big thing for me. Until I got to Murray State and I learned that, I could have a relationship with my college coaches like I did in high school. I mean, it was a great family atmosphere and environment there at Murray that Coach Nutt kind of set up. So changed gears and I wanted to be a college coach. So Coach knew my aspirations to be a coach. We kept in contact when he left and he brought me on when I graduated in December. I was in Fayetteville in January as a graduate assistant. For 1 year in 1999. Keith Burns left to go be the head coach at Tulsa. He took me with him. Then Coach Nutt called me back to come to Arkansas. I was at Tulsa for about 6 weeks. Called me back to coach the outside linebackers, Tony Bua and Kenny Hamlin, and all these guys. Jimmy Beasley, some really good players. I saw Ken Hamlin. He came to visit us out in California. We were at practice and had a chance to see him and kind of joked about the first time I met him. That's a good story. I'll tell you here if you got some time. But and then I was with Houston for the next. I was with Houston for 13 years, Arkansas and Ole Miss.
Well, and it's funny how you just hit that, and we were talking about this before you came on. You go to Tulsa 6 weeks, and that didn't really work out for those guys, and you get an opportunity to come back. Talk to us, the ups and downs when y'all were here. I mean, some great moments. You go, to beat Tennessee, the number one team in the nation. You go to SEC championship games, those type things. And there's some years up and down. But
right.
Talk to us about your time at Arkansas and the relationships you built and just your experience.
Well, that was my first experience, and a great one, at major college football. I mean, I can see these vivid images of me driving into, I didn't know where Fayetteville, Arkansas was. I didn't know where Murray, I'm a Florida kid. So, these places are all new to me. I can remember my car being packed up with everything I own, driving from Tallahassee to Fayetteville, coming over the big hill. First of all, I come up and I've never seen hills like this before, right? So I'm driving kind of white knuckled and I'm, and I come over the bend and I see the town and, pull up and this was major college football. I mean, it was an amazing experience. I tell you what was great, Jeff, and this is like when I met you, the high school coaches in the state of Arkansas are, they don't get appreciated for the job they do around the country. I mean, just great high school coaches, great tradition there in that state. I mean, a lot of pride. I mean, and that was one thing that we tried to pride ourselves on during our time there, is having those relationships with the high school coaches and getting to know them and building inroads. Of course, it was so personal to Houston being from Arkansas. And that became, again, for a guy that wasn't from Arkansas, that became very important to me because of how important it was to him. And then the kids. I mean, just loved recruiting those kids because it was so important. You go into those homes and go into those schools, and you had that Razorback on your shirt, and just the kids' eyes, the way they lit up. I mean, you're a kid from Arkansas, having a chance to play at Arkansas is such a big thing still to this day. And it was just amazing. Our time there, like you said, we had some up and downs. The highs were as high as you could have. I mean, some of the wins, beating LSU at the last minute, beat our last game, LSU our last game there. But just had some great bowl games, beating Texas. Just some great memories. Some tough battles. Took some lumps at times, won some big ones, and that's college football. That's the life of a college football coach. You kind of got to roll with the punches. But our time at Arkansas, when it was good, it was the best. I mean, it was unbelievable. I've got goosebumps thinking about driving, down Markham, going to War Memorial Stadium, and we're getting ready to play. It might have been the LSU game, but we're getting ready to play, and there's people. Our bus is coming And I can see people like banging on the, I mean, I can see it banging on the bus just as we're driving up. I mean, just such a great memory of all the good times there in Arkansas.
Well, and you guys did a phenomenal job. It's funny, we had Coach on earlier and talking about, the high school, Coach came in, it was like he was one of ours. I never have seen the state like that as far as high school coaches being so proud,
Yeah.
And Coach Pittman's done a good job, with here, and they've embraced everything. Well, y'all going, Coach ends up going to Ole Miss, and then you're down there. I was watching the deal on SEC the other day about, y'all beating Florida and Tim Tebow, the famous speech, and wasn't for that would never been created. And, and talk to us your time. You're still in the SEC to a different spot, and your time there, with Coach and the Ole Miss atmosphere. That's a great program also.
Yeah. Well, the great thing about going, there with Coach is that he took the culture with him, which was great. So you're at a different program, but it's the same type of family atmosphere. You enjoy going to work with the people you're working with. You enjoy the kids. One of the hardest things that we've ever done is those first 2 years coming back and playing Arkansas, either at home or on the road, with a group of kids. So you got a new group of kids, and you're playing against the group you just left, and you still love those kids. I mean, one thing I'll say is, sitting in those living rooms, recruiting those kids, you can't turn that off. You sat in the living room, you loved them. And, it was never a thing where, it would have been different if we left out of conference or went to the other side of the SEC, but you're still in the SEC West. And we left all those kids that Coach Petrino inherited were guys that we sat in the living rooms and recruited. So the first time, I'll never forget, we go to Fayetteville, and before the game, we've got those kids coming over to us. Now, this doesn't happen in any other situation, right? You go to other games and they're mean mugging you and you're giving them the ugly look, and and I mean, this is like a reunion with all the kids coming up to you, hugging them, and before the game, and you're like, well, wait a minute, the whistle's gonna blow here, and we're gonna kick this thing off in a couple minutes, and I'm trying to get these guys to come, knock your helmet off, but and so you wanted to see them individually do well, you wanted to win the game, but you still wanted to see guys you recruited do well. So it was a weird dynamic. One that I'll never forget, just because until those guys cycled out, it was still so personal because, you love those kids on that other sideline too. Our first 2 years at Ole Miss, I give credit to Ed Orgeron every time I get a chance to tell this. I mean, he left us some really good players there. And we coached them up, got the 2 back-to-back Cotton Bowls, playing Texas Tech and Oklahoma State. And we signed some good young players. Those last 2 years, we couldn't flip it as fast. And one thing about this league, they don't wait for you to say, well, in about 2 years, you'll be ready to go again. So I would like to say that when Coach Freeze first came in, that he had a good foundation of young guys that happened to be juniors and seniors that he could build off of. A lot like when we took over for Ed, there was a foundation there that we could go win early. Coach Nutt his record, of course, speaks for itself. He's such a great man and a great coach. It's very unfortunate that after his coaching days at Ole Miss, that there wasn't another group of young men to be influenced by him. I was really fortunate to have played for him and then worked with him for 13 years. I think about, it's funny because when I got to Arkansas and I heard Coach talk to the players, it was so different because I had sat in those seats before, not at Arkansas, but as a player. So I had a different perspective when I went into home visits to talk about Coach. I had different perspective when he would talk to our players, and I'm sitting there listening, and I'm like, I've heard this one before. I know where he's going with this speech. I felt what they felt, even as a coach. So it was awesome, and I hate that there's a group of kids that missed out on that opportunity when he was done. But yeah, I had a great time at Ole Miss, especially early. The last 2 years were tough, but I had a great time. And again, it was about the people. You go through tough times, at the end of a run at a place. It's about the people you're with, because it is a hard job. So being, enjoying the people you're working with and feeling like a family definitely helps.
Well, no doubt. You leave there, and this is a good question, I think, is you've played for Coach Nutt. You've coached with Coach Nutt for 13 years, and I guess you and James Shebest, y'all go over to Memphis.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget, Tommy West was leaving out and makes the statement, help the next guy. Let's get her facilities. And Justin, you guys come in there and really get that thing going at Memphis at the right direction. Tell me how your feelings was. Coach Nutt, and that staff. That's family to you. And even though James is coming over, and you probably know a lot of the other staff members at Memphis, you're going to with a new head coach.
Yeah, it was different. Like I said, I had never worked for anybody else. So Coach Nutt was everything that what I thought. All my foundation of what a coach should be, a college coach, was a lot formed by Coach and by the guys that were there. Funny you mentioned James Shebest, who's probably my best friend in the profession still. I just talked to him last week. 15 years together at 3 different places. That doesn't happen. And because he was the special teams coordinator and I was the young coach when we first started, I'm always the first assistant. So I'm, the old guys, put the young guy, he's helping the special teams on kickoff return and kickoff. And, so for 15 years, I was his, right-hand man on special teams. He was the guy, but I was the young coach. So it was always, I was always with him. And our kids, it's funny because our kids are the same age. So we're, I've got pictures of my kids and his kids, in the backyard on the swing before elementary school. I mean, when they're very, very young. And matter of fact, JJ is very proud of him. He's a baseball coach there in the area now, and really proud of him. And just to see him where he is now, I had to give a little shout out to my man JJ. Really proud of him because he's like family. But we go off to Memphis, and I'll never forget. Me and James are laughing because we go from having an indoor, at both places. It is cold. It's off-season workout, and we're outside in Memphis. And we're looking at each other like, what have we gotten ourselves into, right? Because we're freezing and we're getting the guys going. But the thing that helped was Justin Fuente. Justin was a teammate of mine at Murray. So he didn't play under Coach Nutt. He came in after Coach Nutt. And Justin was a junior when I was a senior. So he was the captain of the offense. I was captain of the defense. And so we were teammates. So, when we got let go at Ole Miss, everybody's scrambling, looking for new opportunities and looking for jobs. And Justin gets that job, and I call him. And I say, Justin, I'd love to come, coach your secondary for you. And he was, it was funny. He said, man, I'd love to have – he was a little hesitant. He said, we're taking over this job here in Memphis. He said, it's not very good. We got a lot of work to do. He said, you've coached in the SEC for a long time. I'm just concerned that it's going to be a short stint for you and that you're going to leave. And the thing I told him, I said, Justin, I worked for the same guy for 13 years. Loyalty is very important to me. I like coming to work with people that I care about, people that I have a relationship with, and you're my former teammate. I mean, I want to come help build this with you. And so those first 2 years there with Justin, I had so much fun. We didn't win a lot of games, but I had so much fun. And I think a little bit of it was, my years at Arkansas and Ole Miss, I was still the young coach on all those staffs, right? So we go to Memphis, and we're a staff of everybody's in their mid to late 30s. Everybody, the head coach, the coordinator, Barry Odom, who's the head coach at UNLV, was the head coach at Missouri, who we were very good friends. I had a chance to really be looked at a little different as a coach, kind of with my, 13 years of experience in the SEC, and we're all a new staff, and we're all young, and it's, well, what do you think? Me, yeah, here's what I think. I get up on the board and I'm going, so it was really a great opportunity for me to really grow as a coach. And And some of that's probably, perceived by me that way as, the young coach that's kind of always been there. But, and that might not be exactly how Houston always looked at me and other guys, but that's the way, you're a young coach and you're coming in and every coordinator that comes in has been doing it for 20 years. And, you're trying, so I really had a chance to grow when I got there. And so it was a lot of fun. Like I said, we didn't win a lot of games, but it was a lot of fun, which led to me getting the job at the University of Texas. As a coach, this as a coach, they always say your best resume is what you put on the field, your guys. And at Memphis, that's how I got the job with Charlie Strong to go to University of Texas, because we were in the same league. And I really didn't have a relationship with Coach Strong. I had never worked for him or, worked with him. But when he got the job at Texas, he knew I had recruited the state of Texas when I was at Arkansas. He saw my guys play in that conference, and that was my resume. So he calls and asks me to come be a part of the staff, and then I do. Another thing that's funny about that. So, Coach Lou Holtz had a huge influence on Coach Nutt. Mm-hmm. So, and also Charlie Strong. Charlie Strong worked for him at Notre Dame and South Carolina. So when I go to work for Charlie, never worked with Charlie before, he starts to address the team. I'm like, wait a minute, I've heard this before. And so you could see the influence that Coach Holtz had on both Coach Nutt and Coach Strong, because, their pillars and their beliefs, Lou Holtz, trust, commitment, and care, which I heard Houston talk about all the time. I started working with Charlie. I'm like, wait a minute, that's Houston stuff. Like, where did you get that from, Lou Holtz? So it was really cool to see how much of an influence Coach Holtz had on both those guys that I ended up working.
Well, it's kind of cool because Coach Strong, he's from Batesville, Arkansas, played at UCA, so there's Arkansas connection. It's kind of interesting. Y'all didn't cross paths there. Let me ask you this, and I've always wanted to ask you this. I just wouldn't have been in the setting. You were there at Texas. Talk to people. Don't understand there's pressure everywhere. Coaches put more pressure on themselves, and at Texas, Charlie goes in there. Was at Louisville and just does an awesome job. Gets the job. Hot commodity. Was a great defense coordinator at Florida. Also, the pressure. Is it unrealistic expectations there, or just outside looking in? Talk to us about that.
And that's a great question. There is, right? You got all the resources. You're expected to compete for national championships because of the resources that you have. It's the flagship. Now, people at Texas A&M might say differently, but it's the flagship in this big state. The flagship school in this big state, and the expectations are very, very high. College football, there's a lot more parity in college football now than there was in the 80s and in the 70s and the 60s. You started to see that turn in the 2000s, where a lot of the blue blood teams, they kind of lost their hold on, teams. A lot of it's recruiting, right? Like when social media hit recruiting, it changed the landscape, right? Because kids that grew up and it affected Arkansas a little bit. I'll get into that here in a minute, but kids that were saying, I grew up wanting to go to school A no matter what. They went because they weren't exposed to other programs. That's where, so that's the only thing they knew. That's where they were going to go. And then all of a sudden, social media and recruiting services and kids start to travel. Kids start to go look at different places and go, all I ever knew was this school, but man, they've got this at this school. They do this at this school. And so that really changed things in recruiting, and all of a sudden really opened some things up. Texas used to be, I would go into Texas to recruit, and all I would want to know from the high school coaches, has Texas offered them? Because if Texas offered him, I was on to the next guy. You weren't going to beat them there. I mean, and a lot of times they were committed as sophomores. Mm-hmm. Now, what that did is it cleared the board up, because they couldn't take everybody. But that was one of the things I wanted to know. Well, as time, when I get there, we're in recruiting battles now. I thought, when I get to Texas, I'm going to have this Longhorn on my shirt. I can go get anybody I want. Well, the fact of the matter was I thought that because if I was competing against, somebody that wasn't as prestigious as Texas, that it'd be easy. But all of a sudden, I'm competing against Ohio State. I'm competing against Florida State. I'm competing against Georgia. I'm competing against LSU. So all of a sudden, it's all relative again, And so we got into some of those recruiting battles, which hadn't been done. Not very many people told Mac Brown no. Yeah. So the dynamic had changed a little bit, and now we're in some of these recruiting battles for some of these really good players in the state of Texas, and it was different. So there was a shift in recruiting. I think, trying to put your finger on, everybody asks, when's Texas going to make the turn and get back to being the Alabama or the Ohio State, back to that. And I don't know the answer. It's hard because since Coach Brown left, the last, couple coaches that have come in there have had the resume that warrants them having the opportunity to be the head coach at Texas, right? But for whatever reason, it just hasn't. They haven't won the Big 12. They hadn't gone to, and now you could argue that teams like TCU with Gary Patterson that did a great job of developing kids, didn't worry about the stars, didn't worry about if they were 4 or 5 star, go get the best players, and they had time to develop them. Texas is in a unique place, unique situation where they have to win on signing day and on game day, where teams that you've seen grow in the Big 12, Baylor, TCU, they're not under the same expectations on signing day, where they can go get a raw guy that's got a lot of upside, bring them through the program, and by year 2 or 3, they're ready to go and really competitive, and they've gotten bigger and stronger, and the upside on some athletes, or that's the biggest thing when you're developing players. You're trying to that's one thing that really helped us at Arkansas, right? Yeah. Is in state, we had some kids that had a lot of upside, and when we got them, we had time to develop them. I think sometimes when you go out and get a 5-star that's, at the top of their ceiling, that you turn the tape on, they're bigger, faster, stronger than everybody on Friday night. But when you get them, there are, that level of they'll probably play early because they're pretty advanced, but the level of, where they can go from there, so there's an argument there, about why, some other teams have done better in the Big 12, or if they've come, or, but, what I will say is Coach Sarkisian, kind of watched him for a while at Texas. He's a really good coach. Got him going in the right direction. They're talented. This could be their year in the conference before they go to that other conference, which would pose a lot of other issues for them. But what I was going to say about recruiting and how it affected Arkansas is, I remember there was a distinct time, and I remember exactly what had happened. I won't mention it there because everybody that's listened to you know exactly when it was. They can probably use their imagination now to find out what I'm talking about. But it went from kids going, if I'm a really good player in Arkansas, I go to Arkansas. But if I'm an elite player, I go to so-and-so. Because, so it was like, well, I know really good players from my school that have gone up on the hill, but nobody's ever been able to go to so-and-so from here, or so-and-so. So I want to go to so-and-so. So we lost some battles, on some kids, some recruiting battles while we were there because of, again, more exposure, and it was the kind of hip thing to do is to say, yeah, there's going to be 20 guys in the state that can go up there, but only I can go over here. You know what I mean? So there was some of that we dealt with. And again, that was because of the shift in recruiting and taking trips. You almost got. I'll tell you this about recruiting: if you can get a kid on campus, and your competition doesn't, you got a great chance of signing a kid. Well, kids starting to travel. They're starting to see things, and I want to go take a look at it. I want to go. Then all of a sudden, it's here we go.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and you just nailed it. You take Clemson, for example, and I've listened to Dabo and even their social media guy. You just hit it about national recruiting. They really got big on social media and brought their campus to everybody, to their living room. And you're seeing that. And that was kind of their takeoff. And they've always had good players and that part of it. But it was kind of interesting. Well, after Texas, which that was interesting because I've always, I've had buddies go coach there, and they'll just, when they leave, they just kind of shake their head, and I've just always wanted to know.
Yeah.
You go on, and now you're a scout for the Dallas Cowboys.
Right.
Talk to us a little bit about that transition. Obviously you're qualified, you've recruited people, you probably know half of them out there anyway. Is the transition, that part of it, just fall in your lap, and I know you probably had a relationship with Mr. Jones and with the Arkansas Dallas connection. Talk to us a little bit about that process.
Well, my foot into the door was James Shevist. So James and Stephen were roommates at Arkansas, still great friends. So when it was time for me to make the transition, I always knew, because I loved evaluating players. I loved that process, and making that transition. I needed somebody to help me get in those doors, right? Because the first thing is people go, well, you've been a college coach for a long time, you're out of coaching right now, but you're going to go back as soon as you get an opportunity. And so I had to prove to the Cowboys a little bit that, hey, this I'm making a career change. This is really what I want to do. I always knew if I wasn't coaching that I wanted to scout. Like, I'd be the guy that, when scouts came in, I'd ask them about their schedule, or, because, it's one thing about coaching. It's such a hostile and unstable profession, especially the higher up you go, that you're always kind of keeping your eye on the back door for another opportunity, right? Just in case something doesn't, fall your way. So, I was always interested in because there's so many parallels between scouting and recruiting. So I was always interested. So when I had the opportunity, James made a call for me, and I was able to get my foot in the door. I basically consulted for the first year. I stayed in Austin, did some work, remotely, would go up. I was an hourly pay guy, again, proving to them that, hey, I can do a good job and this is what I want to do. And I'm very grateful for that opportunity, for them just to give me an opportunity to show that I could do it and this is what I wanted to do. And then they hired me full time after that 1 year of really consulting. And I think a lot of the things that I learned in recruiting as a college coach helped me on this, evaluating the way the process is different, but it's relative, right? So if a high school kid can't break the long run in high school, he's not going to do it in college. Well, same thing when we evaluate college guys. If he can't break the long run in college, he's not going to do it in our league. So there's a lot of parallels, a lot of things that are relative as far as evaluating and recruiting. Now the process is a little bit different. We have so much more time to evaluate these players now. A lot of it is because we pick them; they don't pick us. That's one of the first things I learned, right? So there's this older scout that was with me, and so we're sitting down talking to this recruit. And so my first year, I'm recruiting this guy. Our place in Frisco, we got the best facility and this and that and this and that. And this older scout, kind of gruff and kind of asking him questions that in a way that was kind of, it wasn't a recruiting way. Like I was thinking, like, if I would have asked him that question that way, that kid ain't choosing me. He's going somewhere else. So the old timer, after it was done, he said, hey, let me tell you something. You didn't ask some of those hard questions. You got to remember this. They ain't picking us. We picking them. And it made all the difference because, I can ask the hard questions without offending them or making them go, well, why did it, or I could challenge them on some things. Hey, I've heard that that you need to be a better worker, or I heard that you don't study enough tape off during the week. Well, that's probably not a conversation when you're trying to recruit a kid and you're trying to get you're thinking, okay, if I can get him, then I'll get him, I'll teach him to do those things, or I'll, but I need to get him. He needs to pick me. It's totally different in NFL. They got no choice. So I mean, we we know them a little bit better because we got time. It would be hard to transition back the other way because of the way the recruiting timeline works, right? You to be perfectly honest, sometimes you have to offer them before you're done with the evaluation so that you can continue to evaluate. It's the only way you're going to stay in the fight, right? Yeah. You can't tell a kid that's got 6 or 7 major offers that, hey, you know what, I really like you, but I'm still doing some work on you, and I'm going to offer you here in about a month. And they got 7, 8 offers. They're like, well, next time you call, they ain't answering your phone call. I already got 8 offers over here. So, yeah, I'll offer you, because you gotta stay in the fight to get to the end point, so, and that's just totally different than what it is here. We gotta, we go to see them practice. We talk to everybody in the building. We see them at all-star games. I mean, so the process of evaluating not just the player, but the person is so different. I wish there was a way to get that done. In college, it's just the recruiting process just moves way too fast. It has to, because of the way they're picking the teams instead of the team picking them.
It's amazing. You go from wanting them to pick you and you're picking them. So, and sometimes, and I know you've had some recruitings where you'd rather be doing the picking than them picking you a little bit.
Right. Yeah. I would love for it to be on the other hand, yes. But that's not the way college recruiting is.
Well, I'm going to turn it over here to Bray and
okay.
and the mouth here, and then we're going to rally back around me and get you off here. Go ahead, Bray.
All right, no problem.
Coach, you kind of hit on a lot of things I wanted to ask you about the differences in the college and NFL recruiting versus scouting and evaluations and things. But from my experience, the college side of it is, yeah, you identify, you build the relationships, but there is that, wine and dine them, you kind of show them what your program's about. And obviously it's different, like you just said, where you're at now. But is there still that aspect of maybe with a high-level target or a guy maybe that you're trying to get off a practice squad from somewhere else where you are trying to sell your program a little bit, or is that even completely irrelevant?
Yeah, so that's great. This will help me kind of bring this all the way back. So the draft process and the free agency process are different, right? Because the free agency process is a lot like recruiting. And I mean, I get excited about that now. I really do, because that's kind of my old wheelhouse. That usually starts to happen late in the draft when you're trying to talk to agents about, hey, if your guy don't get picked up here in the next, we want him, and this is why, because we got this and this and this. And hopefully you've done, built a rapport with a young man during the process, whether it be at an interview or at a bowl game. And so, the free agent, whether it be college free agency or pro free agency, is a lot more like recruiting, because they're picking you. So you got to make, you got to put your best foot forward to make it seem like it's the best opportunity for them to get them to pick you, which is different than the draft process where we're picking them during the draft. But yes, when we get to free agency, that I try to pull out some of my old tricks, and
sure.
When we get to that, some I start talking about the facility a little bit more, and the way that the star is thought of around the world, and what can, after you're done playing, how this can help. So those are a lot of things that I used to talk about when I was recruiting in college about, hey, when you're done playing college ball, playing at so-and-so school will help you, when you're done. So a lot of that starts to come back into play when we start talking about free agency.
Sure. And kind of going along with that a little bit, let's say I'm headed to Frisco or I'm headed to Dallas next weekend. Where are the 3 spots that I need to sit down and have a meal?
It's a good question. So according to what you want. So, and here's what I'll say. I don't know all the places. I'll tell you where I eat when I'm in Frisco. Okay. So I'll go to La Hacienda for Mexican, which is really, really good. Let me see. Campese's for Italian.
Okay.
Right there, that place is awesome.
Yeah.
First time I ever went to Campese's, Coach Nutt took me. I was coaching at Arkansas, and we were recruiting in Dallas and went to Campese. So I still go there. There's one in Frisco. La Hacienda is in Frisco, and Hard Eight is a really good barbecue place up in that area.
Okay.
It's one of those a la carte. You walk in and they've got the big, you go pick out, I want that piece of chicken and those ribs right there. It's all out there, all being cooked and smoked right there. You just got to pick it off and then go get your side. So those are probably my 3 spots that I go to when I'm in the area.
All right. Noted. The important things.
Exactly. All right, Mouth.
All right, Coach. Great to have you on. First of
Thank
all,
you.
I've
Appreciate the opportunity.
been a big fan of yours, and as fate would have it, one day 11 years ago now, I guess, long time ago, your Marquette, your wife, comes into the Warrior Advising Center, and I was her advisor, and I said Vaughn, and I looked up her stuff, and I looked up on the screen, said Murray, Kentucky. I said, Are you married to Coach Vaughn? And this was right when y'all got back from your 6-week vacation in Tulsa.
Yeah.
And as how things really go, I graduated from Rice when my dad coached there. And one of my dad's and my mom's good friends from Rice, Will McClay. Will and I had classes together at Rice when he came back to graduate before he hit the Arena League, became the Hall of Fame Arena League player.
Yep.
And then my dad played next to Jerry Jones on the national championship team. My dad was the tackle on Everett side, and Jerry was the guard. I think my dad weighed a massive 215, and Jerry was 185. I think
they had a lot of meat on the line.
Yeah, so they were quick off the ball. So last night I was talking to Kim Dameron, who recruited and played at Arkansas, coached with my dad at UNLV, going to see him Friday night in the Battle of Fort Smith with the South Side versus North Side. He sent me the South Side T-shirt, so I'm gonna be decked out. And he said, tell Chris I recruited him. He was a great player for us at Murray. He said, but where did Deuce get his twitch? Because Chris has no twitch.
So let me tell you a story about that. So he got his twitch from his mom, and his mom will tell you. So she's always like, she'll never say like, well, he probably got some of that from you. It's always like a cousin. Oh, he reminds me of my brother or my cousin. I'm like, well, I don't get any of the credit, and so I'm good. She'll say it's all from her side, and Kim will say it's all. So Kim, I just absolutely love. I mean, just again, he was one of the reasons why I wanted to be a college football coach, because of people saying, well, you can't have a relationship in college like you did in high school. And he was one of the guys that showed me that you could. So I got drafted. I got recruited to Murray State. When you talk to him, he'll laugh about this. So I'm 5'10" and a half. I still am.
You're taller than he is.
205. Huh?
You're taller than he is.
Yeah. But I'm 205. So we're running the 8-man front. So I want you to think about when I was at Arkansas back in the day, that was the same defense we ran. So Tony Bua, Jimmy Beasley. So we're running the same defense, right? So they recruit me to Murray to kind of play that strong safety outside linebackers, and then we run 40s. Well, I become an inside linebacker pretty. He'll laugh about that. But the other thing, his wife, Debbie, is a Murray girl, so there's a connection there. But I remember when he left, and he left to go to Cincinnati. He left Murray, and we played Eastern Kentucky, which was close to Cincinnati. And this is the type of impact that he had on us as players. He came to the game, and I'll never forget this. He's standing on the sideline, and he wasn't standing on our sideline. It was almost like he was in the end zone. And so he wasn't in the coaching box. He was on. But I remember one of my teammates made a play, Kenny Thomas, in the back of the end zone. And I can still vividly see Coach Dameron with a Cincinnati jacket on, giving him a high five, and that player going straight to him, even though he was gone, to give him a high five. This is like in the middle of a game. Like it probably should have been a penalty, right? Because this guy ain't with us, you know. But that's the impact that he had on, to me, when I see things like that, you can tell that it was more than coaching with coaches, right? So another highlight of my coaching career is this guy recruited me. I played for him, and then he came to Ole Miss, and then I worked with him in the secondary. And so a big part of who I am as a coach, big part of who I is because of Kim Dameron. And absolutely love you. So Kim, remember, he was young when I was a player, right? So Kim's got to be, how old do you think Kim is?
He's early 60s now, 60.
Early 60s. So he's probably 13 years older than me, you know, whatever. Yeah. So Kim was pretty young. I mean, he was in his early 30s when he was coaching me at Murray, right?
Right.
So my wife, this is why, so tell Kim, my wife used to think he was so good looking. So he would be running.
I can't wait. She hadn't seen him lately, has she?
So she, and he will, what's funny is he used to say, that's my girlfriend. She'd say, that's my boyfriend. I mean, because, you know, so Kim, I mean, he used to kind of have the long hair, you know, this kind of, you know, this is the 90s now, you know, he'd be running on campus, you know, probably shirt off, you know, little shorts. And so all the girls on campus, you know, would, oh, look, you know, they go coach, they go so-and-so, you know. So she used to talk about Coach Dameron all the time. So then he would mess with me about it, right? Like, hey, Marquette talked to me today. You know, she said hello to me today. So
hey, can I ask you something about, so Kim Dameron was Mark Termadal before Mark Termadal with the long hair at TCU, the special teams coordinator, right?
Yes. He had the baby mullet. It wasn't a full mullet, but
you know. I know, because he would coach with my dad at UNLV for 1 year before he came to. He was lucky to get off that Bataan Death March at UNLV and got to come to Murray.
Those kids there probably won't realize until they're gone. That's usually how it happens, right? Is you realize after you're away from your coach the type of influence that they've had on you. But they got a great one there, and I'm appreciative of him because of my time with him and love him to death.
And I want to tell you one story he gave me. This was weeks ago when Deuce was first starting playing at Kansas State, and it was must-see TV for me to tune in on Saturdays when I wasn't at a Razorback game to watch him, because he was just whoop, 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 in and out. Now, he said, "Let me tell you a story." I said, "Okay." He said, "I'm at Kansas, and he was, what do they call it? He was a
analyst.
He was a analyst there at Kansas, and he said, I bring in this tape of Deuce, and I show it to the director of football operations. He says, Coach Miles likes big backs. Got to have big backs. Got to get physical. Got to be able to run over people." And Kim was telling me that, and I got to laughing, and I said, "Well, if Les hadn't been so stuck on big backs, he may still be coaching at Kansas if he had taken Deuce." Okay, I'm just saying. And then when I just want you to know, Jeff and I are coming with a group of people December 30th to the Green Bay game. We're going to be in Joe Hickman's box. He was my dad's manager at El Dorado when he was head coach. And but that was my funny story. And Coach Nutt, of course, was giving me all kinds of you got to ask Chris this, you got to ask Chris. But I said, Coach, I think I got a good one for him. He said, what's that? I said, I'm going to ask him about the twitch. He said, oh, he'll love that one.
Oh, no doubt about it. Deuce gets it from his mom, and she will tell you that.
I got to have a number 42 jersey. I got to find one. That's all I can say.
Hey, well, Coach, we'll get you off here. I want to leave you with one last question. And, everybody's watched, draft day and the NFL's made up of secrets. I mean, it's a tight lip, I heard Bill Parcells say one time, we're not in the business of giving information away. We're in the business of taking information.
No doubt.
Talk to us about this. Getting up to draft day, I know you're in there with Scout. How intense is that? Is it, obviously you're organized, you don't know what's going to happen, who's jumping. You probably had a idea. You're listening to rumors, who's going where. Talk to us a little bit about leading up to draft day in those days in the draft.
Yeah. Well, to Mouth mentioned Will McClay, and he is a wonderful, wonderful man to work for. I mean, just normal guy, former coach, down to earth, and the amount of work that, the Joneses, that Will and our staff do before those 3 days kind of sets everything up, because there's so many moving parts, right? So, you have to have contingency plan for contingency plan. And so it's not nearly as, now here's what I'll say about, I love Draft Day. It's a great movie, but it's like all movies, right? So just like the program, just like some of, any given Sunday, every possible scenario, negative and positive, that can happen, they put in one movie. So, everything you saw in that movie might have happened over a 20-year period, happened in the same draft. If you've done the work and prepared the right way, then it's not as contentious as that in most situations. Now, the conversations when you're talking about trades, but there's a protocol to that. We've got a great feel for, when somebody calls us and wants to trade, what that value looks like to us and what we're willing to take, because a lot of times everybody's trying to get, nobody wants to say it was an even deal, right? Everybody wants to come out on the best side of the deal. So, we've got a great protocol and a great process to, when somebody, ask us, we'll look at things and say, yeah, that's a good deal. We'll think about it. Or no, we're going to need a little bit more than that. So all those things are done and set up, the process. The Joneses have done this for years. And that's one thing I will say is that he's got a great reputation of evaluating talent and on draft day, coming out with some gems and guys that meet their potential. But so much work is done before those days that it's almost a dance. Like, okay, well, it's coming up. This is what we're going to do. And, so we get into some conversations of, well, who's there, who's, by the time we're looking, we'll get into conversations about, is this guy, we like this guy right here, but is he going to be here for our next pick as opposed to this other guy? So if we take this other guy, we got a chance to maybe get this guy in the next round because he might still be there. So there's a lot of conversations that go in there, but the work has been done so that, it's not, you're not throwing papers up and you're looking to find, I mean, it's pretty organized where you kind of go from here to here to here. And, but it's a great experience. I mean, it really is. And so, as the assistant director now, this was my first year in the war room on draft day. And it was different to see the inner workings, because before, our area guys are kind of off, in the office adjacent, and we're kind of hearing things, but it's different when you're in there. And Mr. Jones say, well, hey, what do you think about so-and-so? And you're, this is what I think, so which was an awesome experience. But those guys do a great job setting things up so it looks like it's calm. It's like seeing a duck everything on the water, everything's really calm, but underneath everything, his feet are going. It's a lot like that during the draft process.
Well, it's kind of funny. It is, I know a couple of years ago, everybody's a draft expert. All NFL. I'm a big Cowboys fan, and I am a draft expert. I know who they need. That's like everybody else. And I remember a couple of years ago, I'm going, we got to have a corner. We got to have a corner. And somebody jumped up in a trade and took the corner. I don't remember who it was. And y'all end up getting Micah, who's just maybe the best defense player in the NFL, and unbelievable. And I remember sitting there going, I think that guy will work, but we still need a corner. It's just funny how all that works and how guys fall in and into your lap and all that deal.
I would say Micah. Since I've been there, I would say Micah and CD Lamb. The way those two guys fell to us in different scenarios was unbelievable, and they're two of our best players on our team. But we didn't anticipate them being there because we thought somebody else would take them. But again, like I said, there's so many moving parts that you look up and you're like, wait a minute, this is the top guy on our board. He's looking at us like he's staring there at us, regardless of position. So, just seeing how those things unfolded was really interesting. But it goes back to how things are so, how things, you go into a draft and you're thinking, okay, because you're also anticipating what other clubs are going to do.
Yep.
And then when somebody does something different, everything kind of reshuffles. So if everything happens the way you kind of, then your pick could be this. But as soon as something kind of happens, all of a sudden you got a different group of guys to pick from. The guy you wanted is gone, or so there's a lot of So that's the fun part about the draft, is that it's intense from that standpoint, because the board keeps changing after every pick, right? Just so it makes it really interesting.
Well, that it's just very interesting to me how all that works, just the pieces in that part. Hey, Coach, we appreciate you having you on. Hey, good luck to you and the Cowboys, and good luck to Deuce. He's got one more preseason game, and hopefully he'll be returning kicks and running the ball a little bit for the Cowboys this year. More excited, and congratulations to you. And like to have you on again, and good to see you. I hadn't seen you in a while, and it's good.
I know it, brother. Good to see you. Good to see your face.
If I get down there, I'm gonna look you up and we'll visit a little bit and everything. But appreciate you coming on. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for the time. Thank you for the opportunity.
All right, see you, Chris. Thanks, Coach. Man, was that not interesting? I mean, talking about recruiting, and then I think one of the biggest things getting out of that is we're not having them choose us. We're choosing them as an NFL scout. I mean, his time at Texas and then obviously at Arkansas, and watching his career, and, talking about his son also. I mean, unbelievable interview.
Yeah, one of the things I think that was kind of big that he talked about a couple times was the relationships in college coaching, that are important. Like he said that, he was told you can't really have that in college, and he wanted to make sure that was a priority for him. But also, whenever you leave a school and what that means to a 19-year-old athlete who you have made that relationship with, and that was cool for him to touch on that.
It was. Mouth, what'd you think?
I thought Coach Vaughn was fantastic. He knocked the interview out of the park. He answered every question we had with the utmost candor and truthfulness, and it is a show that will go down as one of our greatest ever.
Yeah, and it was outstanding. Let's move in a different direction. Let's go ahead and hit week 0. Now, Mouth, me and you have, we've got 3 people. We'll try to have a guest picker every week, but it's going to be me and you and Grandma Na. We're going to test our things with Grandma Na. Grandma Na is my mother-in-law. She watches a little football, and she likes to pick games too. So she wanted to be involved. So we're going to test our knowledge.
She'll probably beat us.
That's a good possibility. But I'm a competitor, and I'm not going to let that happen.
I heard that.
Let you know and everything. All right, let's start off. Week 0 is bringing. I went through games, and we're just trying to pick them out. I got a couple of guys that helped me pick them out. Man, there's a bunch we left off. Just some outstanding games this week. Let's start off here real quick. Let's hit the 5A West. You got Greenbrier traveling to Farmington. They're at home. They played last year. Greenbrier won. Farmington won last year. They've both scrimmaged. Farmington's lost a lot of people on defense. Greenbrier feels like they've got a chance to be pretty good. Who does the Mouth have in Greenbrier at Farmington?
The Mouth is going with Coach J.R. Eldridge and the Farmington Cardinals.
Well, it looks like I'm going to do the same, and it looks like Grandma Nah is going with Farmington, going with the local team over here, is going with Farmington. Let's go to the next game, which I think is a very, very interesting game, is Little Rock Catholic at North Little Rock. Catholic, had a great year, won the conference, got beaten in the semi in 6A last year, semifinals last year. North Little Rock coming in with a brand new coach, got hired late in Clinton Reed. A lot of ups and downs. Heard they had an outstanding scrimmage, Joe, against El Dorado in their scrimmage. Who does the Mouth like at North Little Rock, Catholic versus North Little Rock?
Man, you just cannot go against John Fogelman at Catholic. I mean, North Little Rock, they've had so much turmoil throughout the summer. Head coach resigns, new head coach comes in just weeks ago. I think North Little Rock will get better as the weeks go on, but I think week 0, Catholic will be too much.
Well, I'm going to go with John Fogelman, Catholic, too, and I agree with you. Grandma Nah is still on the Charging Wildcat bandwagon. She's going to go with North Little Rock. All right, let's go to our first game. It will be Thursday night, the Battle of the Bone there in Crawford County. We got Alma headed over to Van Buren. Van Buren's coming off a very impressive scrimmage against Farmington. Everybody feels like they're a lot better offensively. Alma's coming off a scrimmage with Ozark. Alma feels like they got as good a skill players they've had. Don't have the linemen that they've had in the past. Who do you take? This game, I think it's one of the hardest games to pick. Who are you taking?
I'm going against the grain on this one. I'm going with the Van Buren Pointers.
Well, I believe all three of us are. And probably the biggest factor I'm taking Van Buren here is it's at Van Buren. Should be a heck of a game. Grandma Nah is going with the Pointers also.
I got a question about about this game. Is the quarterback for Alma, is he going to be ready to play?
I think so. We're early on doing this early on in the week. I've talked to them, and hopefully he'll be ready to go.
Because I don't think he played Monday night. I don't think he played the Ozark scrimmage.
Yeah, and so we'll see how that works out. Well, that's a big factor. We'd like to know. We can change our picks.
Yeah.
All right, let's go. You're very familiar with this team, Mouth. We got Valley View and Harding Academy, a big 5A matchup. Harding Academy's in 4A, obviously. Went to the state finals last year. Valley View, Coach Cockrell and them feel like they got a chance to make a run. They won a playoff game last year. Feel like they got to make a run this year. Who are you liking in that one?
Well, I like Harding Academy for Coach Evans does such an outstanding job there. 2 state championships or 3 state championships in a row, I believe, and they lost to Malvern last year. And I got to go for them because my niece is a cheerleader for Harding Academy.
Homer. I
got to go
Homer.
And I'm excited about this game because Valley View has a linebacker that is committed to the University of Missouri. Excited to see him play, and excited to see one of the latest Razorback commitments. Coach Simmons at Harding, Wyatt Simmons had committed to the Razorbacks yesterday.
I saw that.
So, really excited to see two Division 1A players go at it on opposite for each team. Well, it'll be exciting.
Be a great game. Let's go on down to South Arkansas a little bit. We've got a powerhouse in Arkadelphia. They've been in the mix in 4A, been state champions, long runs, and they're playing a very talented Camden Fairview team. Nick Vaughn feels like, just reports I've got at team camp, they feel like they've got a chance to really make some noise this year. Who you like in this matchup?
Well, I got to go with family once again. Coach Vaughn coached my dad at Forest City when my dad was athletic director at Forest City with Coach Scott Reed, and they moved to El Dorado with us when we all went to El Dorado. Nick's coming off a 10-win season, first year out the box, so this will be a great game. But I'm going with I'm going with the Camden Fairview Cardinals.
I'm going to do the same just on the impact they've had a little bit in team camp, but I can see Arkadelphia's got good players, and they do a great job coaching over there. Grandma Nas also going with the Fairview Cardinals. Next matchup, I think is a very interesting one, is Pulaski Academy and Joe T. Robinson. Joe T's coming off last year. They've been state champions in 4A. They've jumped up to 5A. They very talented team. Coach Scola is always in the mix year in, year out. Coach Lucas at PA coming off a state championship season last year. They also they scrimmaged Bryant. PA did. Bryant handled them pretty good in a half. What do you think? I mean, this is a big matchup in Central Arkansas, especially in Little Rock.
This is another great Week 0 game. This will just be fantastic. I think they're both great programs. I'm going with Pulaski Academy.
I'm going to go with Pulaski Academy also. Grandma Na is on the Senators bandwagon. She's taking Joe T. Robinson in this one. All right, let's go to, we're going to hit a few 7As here and 6A. Big matchup, and I think this is one of the most interesting matchups there is all in Week 0. Cabot going to travel to Fayetteville. Cabot at Fayetteville. Coach Reed and them had a nice scrimmage against Russellville. I believe won 14-0.5. Fayetteville did some good things against Greenwood. Lost a scrimmage and a half to Greenwood. I think the key factor in this game will be Cabot's defensive line versus Fayetteville's offensive line. Mouth, who you got in this one?
Well, I got to go. It'll be a great game.
Oh, yeah.
I am going with the Cabot Panthers in this. I think Coach Reed does such a fabulous job as coach for Cabot, and he's family, so I can't go against family. But it's an interesting matchup between two great head coaches.
Oh, gosh, yes.
Casey Dick at Fayetteville and Scott Reed at Cabot. I've heard that Cabot is really good on defense this year. Second in the secondary, that they're playing really well in the secondary right now. Their linebackers are good. Cabot is breaking in a senior quarterback this year that hasn't played much till now. Played at the end of last year against Bentonville in the playoffs when their starting quarterback was injured. But the key to this game is can Cabot's defense make life hard on Drake Lindsay? If they can't get pressure to him, and he's able to just sit back there and shoot fish in a barrel, it's going to be a long night for Cabot. But I'm going with the Panthers.
Well, I'm going to go with. I think it's very difficult. I'm basing off. I think Cabot's defensive line, excuse me, can really handle everything, and I'm going to go with Cabot. Grandma Nas going with Fayetteville. All right, let's head over to God's country over here in Northeast Arkansas. We got West Memphis at Jonesboro. This game, the last few years, whoever you thought was going to win didn't win, and it's one of the best rivals in the state of Arkansas. You've seen West Memphis. Jonesboro has a new coach. Talk to me about this ball game, Brent.
Whoa, Jonesboro has the unique thing that happened to them this year. They're on their second coach in 6 months. Coach Quad Sanders had taken the head coaching job at Jonesboro. He was the former defensive coordinator at Bryant. Then after he took that February, then 6 weeks later, surprise, surprise, Buck James jumps up and goes to Conway. And what is Quad to do? When you're offered the Bryant job, you got to take it. And he loaded up and moved back to Bryant. Jonesboro has got a long ways to they've got a long ways to go, but they can get there. But I've seen West Memphis at team camps, and golly, they're athletic, and I'm going to go with the Blue Devils Friday night.
Going with the Blue Devils. Well, I'm going to go with the Blue Devils also. I think they've got a great defense line. I think this is a statement year for Coach Hooks and the West Memphis Blue Devils. But this game, you can't ever tell. Grandma Na is going to go with the Jonesboro Hurricanes. She's going against the grain. Let's go to the next game. Which just as always, this is a game that Bryant versus Benton will be played on Saturday night at War Memorial Stadium. There are usually over 30,000 people there. Talk to us about the Benton Bryant game.
What a rivalry! First of all, I mean, you're within 10 miles of each other, probably, give or take. The Battle of Saline County. Interesting matchup because Coach Brad, what's his last name? The coach at Benton,
Brad Harris.
Brad Harris. He's done a fantastic job, and he's got a great player in Braden Russell, great tailback, and what a way for Quad Sanders to make his debut as the head coach of the Bryant Hornets in War Memorial Stadium, 30 to 35,000 folks. What an unbelievable experience it will be for him. And I am going with the Bryant Hornets.
Well, I'm going to go with the Bryant Hornets also. Until somebody beats them, I'm taking them every time almost. I mean, and Benton's played them pretty well in the past, and Brad's got a great team at Benton, and they're going to be in the mix in 6A, but Bryant's there. All right, last game. This is the game that you'll be attending this Friday night, the Battle of Rogers Avenue. I know a little bit about this game. Coach said it probably about 15 times or 16. North side at south side. We've really broken this game. Me and you have off the air all summer long. What do you think about the Battle of Rogers Avenue?
First of all, let me say I'm excited about being a spectator at the Battle of Rogers Avenue. I can't wait to get there. Going up on Thursday, where I'll have all Friday, just to get the feel of around the city, how everybody's reacting to the big game. It will be an interesting game because we know what Southside's going to try to do with that massive offensive line they got. They're going to line up and go right at Northside. If I was to guess, they're going to cut the game down into probably as few possessions as they possibly can. And I think I think it'll be a close game. Rivalries always are, but I think in the end I am going with Southside in this game, and I'm looking for them to be probably, in my opinion, the sleeper in the state.
Well, it's a very intriguing. Northside's won the last 5 or 6 games in this, and probably been a little bit more talented the last 5 or 6 years in Southside. Southside, we both got to see them up close and personal this week. Massive offensive line. Coach Stewart does a great job with those guys. Got good backs, the key to this game is I don't think it's Southside's offense necessarily. It's Southside's defense. Are they going to be able to play good defense and situational football? I think that's the key. But I think I could see Southside. I think they're going to win this one. They're at home. I'm going to go with Southside. Grandma Na is going to stick with the Grizzlies, and she's going to stay. Going to go with the Northside Grizzlies. But I think this is an outstanding game. Both of these teams are they know each other real well, and whoever makes the least amount of mistakes is going to win the ball game. But I'm going with Southside. Grandma Na's going with Northside. That is our top 10 games of the week, and I'm really interested to see how this all folds out, which, everybody's played benefit games, but we all know how it is once you get into it. Brent, talk to our audience before we get off here about what you're going to be doing at the Southside Northside game, throwing some T-shirts out. Go ahead and talk to our audience about that, and we'll get off here.
Oh, yeah. Glad to. What we're going to do, we're going to throw out, we're going to give each cheerleader group, Northside's cheerleaders, will get 10 T-shirts to throw out into their stands, and the Southside cheerleaders will get 10 T-shirts to throw into the Southside fans. So that's it. So come out, support your local team, and who knows, you may catch a Coaches in the Mouth T-shirt.